My name is Malik Thompson. I'm 17, raised in Inglewood, where police helicopters and screeching tires are the soundtrack to every night. My mom's a nurse, working double shifts to raise me after my dad died of heart disease. I never had designer clothes, and I'd never stepped foot anywhere near Rodeo Drive until that day. The luxury boutique was a crystal box glowing in the heart of Beverly Hills. Inside, the air smelled like Dior cologne and ambition. Bright white lights reflected off glass displays filled with handbags that cost more than college tuition. I walked in with my head held high and my heart pounding. I wasn't there to steal. I just wanted to look at a leather jacket. That's it. But as I approached the display, her voice cut through the silence, sharp and soaked in judgment. "Excuse me, you need to leave." I turned around. A white woman in her early 30s, face caked in makeup, lips painted blood red. Her name tag gleamed: Kelly, Senior Sales Advisor. "We don't serve customers like you," she continued, her tone flat and hard as the marble beneath my sneakers. "If you're not planning to buy anything, I suggest you exit before I call security." I froze. It felt like someone had just punched me in the chest. "What do you mean? Customers like me?" I asked, keeping my voice calm while my hands clenched deep inside my hoodie pocket. Kelly didn't bother hiding her disdain. "We've had plenty of people come in, wandering around, pretending to shop. This is a high-end store. You don't belong here. You don't belong." Those 3 words rang in my head like church bells, each one pounding against my pride. I looked around. A white couple trying on shoes glanced my way. The man shook his head slightly, and the woman pursed her lips and leaned into his arm. A middle-aged woman clutched her handbag and took a step back, like I might snatch it. A young employee behind the counter glanced at me, then quickly looked down at his phone, pretending he hadn't seen anything. No one said a word. No one stepped in. I felt paralyzed. My heart was racing. I wanted to scream, to ask them if they had any idea who I was. But instead, I took a breath. I just wanted to look at that leather jacket. I said, voice barely above a whisper, "It's over $12,000. Kelly replied with a small, smug smile, like she was doing me a favor. "I think you'd be better off somewhere else." Rage surged up my throat, but beneath the anger was something colder, something heavier, a silent kind of shame I'd known too well, too long. I remembered the time my mom got rejected at a supermarket in Compton because her discount voucher looked fake. She didn't argue, didn't cry. She just quietly put the loaf of bread back on the shelf and held my hand as we left. I remembered showing up to school in fake Jordans, getting clowned by both the white kids and the black ones for a week straight. I remembered all of it. And now, I was living it again right here, in the heart of the richest city in America. I clenched my jaw. My nails dug into my palms. The pain was a strange relief. It meant I was still here. "I'll be back," I said, eyes locked on Kelly's, in a way you could never imagine. She laughed, cold, mechanical. "When you come back, make sure you close the door behind you." I stepped out into the California sunlight, blinding and harsh, but somehow I still felt cold. People passed me like I didn't exist. I stood in the middle of Rodeo Drive, a place meant for celebrities, CEOs, and movie stars, not black boys in hoodies. A Bentley rolled by. Inside was a white man with gelled back hair, sunglasses, a white dress shirt, and a latte in hand. A Rolex peeked from beneath his sleeve, and a part of me wondered why he gets to belong here, and I pulled out my phone. On the screen, a wire transfer notification from yesterday. Wire transfer $4,500,000, completed. The payment from a software deal I've been working on for 2 years quietly, patiently, in my tiny bedroom, with nothing but a ceiling fan and the sound of sirens outside my window. I hadn't spent a dime. No car, no Instagram flex, just silence. Until today, Kelly thought she won. Thought I was just another black kid who didn't know his place. Thought I'd disappear into the shadows like so many others. But what she didn't know is this. I'm not angry. I'm calculating. And when I come back, it won't be to apologize. I'll be back to own the place. Back in my 3rd-floor apartment in that worn-down complex in Inglewood, I kicked off my beat-up Nikes, dropped into my creaky desk chair, and opened my faded silver MacBook, the same one I'd nearly pounded the keyboard off over the past 3 years. One day I'd replace it, but not today. Today, I needed it for something more important to carry out the first revenge plan of my life. I logged into my business account. The numbers blinked back at me like a dare 4504-217-12. That's what I had let out from selling BudgetMate, an automated budgeting app for students. I built it at 16 while most kids were still chasing clout on TikTok. When I presented it at a youth tech fair in Santa Monica, I was stuttering in a hoodie, nervous, overlooked. Except by one person, Sophie Nguyen, a young CEO running a major startup out of San Jose. She watched from the sidelines for a year, then stepped in and invested in me, helped me secure funding. Last month, a major corporation bought out the platform. I sold 60% equity, took the payout in cash, and told no one. No flex, no press, no new car. I stayed silent. I liked it that way. Quiet, strategic, unseen. After Kelly kicked me out of that boutique, I came home and sat still for nearly an hour, saying nothing, blinking less. I stared at my bank login screen. There was a kind of pain in my chest that needed to be packaged, condensed into action, and the only action that made it easier to breathe was giving back what they gave me tenfold. I looked up the parent company behind the store where Kelly worked. 2 clicks later, I had it Janique Group owners of 4 luxury fashion brands in the US, including Maison Ciel, the glowing name on the boutique sign where I was humiliated. I exhaled. I wasn't a hacker, but I knew how to read corporate filings, shareholder breakdowns, and financial loopholes. In 3 hours, I had a full view of their finances, and it wasn't pretty. Maison Ciel had posted losses for 7 straight quarters. The parent company's stock had dropped 30% after a racial discrimination scandal involving an Asian American customer the year before a controversy the media inflated for a week, then let fade. They'd tried to recover with hollow PR campaigns, including a photo shoot with a black model for February, and then moved on. I knew because I'd been watching luxury fashion from the outside for years, like a kid staring through the window at a party he was never invited to. But this time, I wasn't just looking in anymore. I called Sophie. When she picked up, I didn't sugarcoat anything. I need a powerhouse commercial law firm. I want to buy a fashion brand. Sophie didn't ask why. She just said, "Send me the details. I'll handle the rest." The next day, I was connected with Jules Kramer, a senior partner at an M&A law firm in Century City. He raised an eyebrow when he saw me, but said nothing. I laid it all out, minus the emotions. Just the facts. I want to acquire Maison Ciel. I've got the capital, and I don't want the brand to know it's me. Jules paused, then nodded. I know how to do that. I set up a shell company, Halberd Holdings, named after a video game character I used to play, a Black Knight exiled from his kingdom for being against tradition, just like me. I used $3 million to acquire a controlling stake in a small fund that had invested in Janique back in 2021. Then we negotiated a complete restructuring of ownership around Maison Ciel, routed through a distressed debt investment firm. All the paperwork, the legal talk, the back-channeling handled by lawyers and reps, no trace of Malik Thompson. While the negotiations played out, I didn't sit idle. I went back to the store, twice, each time, under a different identity. The first time, I dressed like your average prep school white boy, linen button-down, glasses, boat shoes. Kelly didn't recognize me. She greeted me with honey in her voice, offered to show me jackets, let me sample cologne. I smiled the whole time, asking about warranties, memorizing every word that came out of her mouth. The second time, I posed as a furniture vendor, carrying a portfolio of mock catalogs and proposing a layout revamp. Another employee walked me through the store. I saw myself again on the security camera footage, that day when they kicked me out, now archived and still intact in their system. I pressed my palm lightly against the surveillance room doorframe and thought, soon, this will all be mine. Maybe they'll never understand what it feels like to be dismissed just because of how you look, but I'll make sure they understand what it feels like to answer to someone they once looked down on. Part 3. Revenge doesn't need guns. Just ownership. 3 weeks later, everything moved faster than I expected. Jules, my attorney, was a shark in a tailored suit, in a He knew exactly what to say to the Janique board to make them accept Halberd Holdings' offer. In the wake of post-COVID inflation, rising overhead, disgruntled staff, and social media still buzzing about past racial discrimination scandals, they needed a lifeline. And me, I was that lifeline, even if they had no idea who I really was. We didn't buy the parent company. We bought Maison Ciel, the brand, and full control over its 3 flagship stores: Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. But there was only one I truly cared about: Rodeo Drive, the very place that had kicked me out like I was some beggar. The deal was negotiated in silence, every term locked behind NDAs. No headlines. I signed everything from behind the legal veil of Halberd. Each signature felt like a clean slice through the arrogance Kelly once spat at me. But I didn't celebrate. Not yet. I had one more thing to do. I met with Jules in a glass-walled office high above the city, so pristine that even the light bouncing off the table reflected the steel in my eyes. I want the transition to be done in person, I said. At Rodeo Drive? Jules blinked. You want to lead it yourself, I will. And I want our internal media team to capture it all. But don't release anything yet. I've got my reasons. He nodded. I could see 100 questions forming in his head, but he asked none. That's what makes a great lawyer. The handover was scheduled for Tuesday, 10:00 a.m. I woke at 6:00, took a cold shower to cool the storm in my mind, then put on a charcoal bespoke suit hand-stitched by a black-owned tailor shop in South LA. Silver gray tie, ivory dress shirt, vintage Omega watch, Sophie's gift to me after the BudgetMate deal closed. I stared at my reflection. I wasn't the boy who got kicked out last month. I was the owner, and I was about to make that very clear. The SUV dropped me off outside Maison Ciel on Rodeo Drive at exactly 9:55. I stepped into the golden California sun with Jules, 2 legal aides, and a discreet videographer trailing behind. I pushed open the glass door. The soft chime echoed. Kelly was behind the counter, chatting with an older female customer. She turned, and I'll never forget the way her face changed. Surprise, confusion, then the slightest twitch at the corner of her mouth. She remembered me, clearly. I gave her a small, polite smile. Good morning, Kelly, she stammered. Can I help you with? I extended my hand. Jules placed a sleek black folder with the silver Halberd logo into it. My name is Malik Thompson. I'm the new owner representative for Maison Ciel Rodeo Drive. This is the official transfer of ownership and the initial staffing reorganization plan. I suggest you read it carefully. The store went still, not a sound. The staff froze. One of them, a young Asian guy I remembered ducking his head while I was being thrown out, was now staring, wide-eyed, like he couldn't believe what he just heard. Kelly's hand trembled as she took the folder. Her knuckles looked pale against the black leather. This can't be. You have 30 minutes to complete your current transaction, I said calmly. After that, we'll have a staff meeting. I expect everyone to be present. No delays. I turned to the young man. Your name, Ryan, he said, voice cracking. I'd like you to assist in implementing our customer experience evaluation system. And if you're open to it, step in as acting assistant manager. Ryan was frozen. Kelly nearly dropped the folder. I didn't shout. I didn't insult anyone. I didn't cause a scene. I let my authority speak for me. That's the difference between petty revenge and grown man vengeance. I didn't need to echo their insults. I let them sit with them. Remember them. Live with the truth that now, they work for me. I sat in the VIP lounge chair near the window, the same store I'd been tossed out of 3 weeks ago. The room was unchanged, same cold lights, same expensive cologne, same marble floors, but everything had shifted because I had. An hour later, the meeting began. I looked each employee in the eye, not to interrogate, but to see them, to take in the surprise, the fear, and on some faces hope. I knew then this moment wasn't just mine. It was for everyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong, and I was just getting started. The meeting room sat upstairs, tucked behind frosted glass doors stamped with the silver Maison Ciel logo. I remembered being stopped right outside that elevator, once accidentally wandering too far during a school tour. Back then, I wasn't allowed near this floor. Now I was the one running the meeting, and attendance was mandatory. 10 minutes before it started, I stood alone by the wide window, looking down at Rodeo Drive where supercars lined up like a runway show, where the rich strolled slowly, phones in hand, shopping bags tucked under their arms. From this height, I no longer felt out of place. I wasn't the black kid being stared at like a stray dog in the sun. I owned this view now. I had a voice here, and the entire room behind me was waiting nervously to hear it. The door opened. Jules gave me a nod. Everyone was present. I straightened my tie, took a deep breath, and stepped in. The room was silent. 9 people. Total 4 sales associates, 2 security guards, a front desk rep, Ryan, and Kelly. They were already seated, but the moment I entered, they all stood. Some looked stunned. A few avoided eye contact. Ryan still seemed like he was processing. And Kelly held her head high, trying to look composed, but her fingers were gripping the armrest so tight I could see her knuckles turning white. I walked to the head of the table, placed my folder down, and took the seat that once belonged to the regional director. It belonged to me now. Thank you all for being on time. I began, voice clear and steady. My name is Malik Thompson. I'm the new owner of the Maison Ciel brand, Rodeo Drive location. No one said a word. I scanned the room, letting my eyes rest on Kelly. Some of you may recognize me from a different context. She pressed her lips together, said nothing. I didn't push. I flipped open a document and tapped the screen behind me. A video began playing. Security footage from 3 weeks ago. There I was in a gray hoodie, hands in my pockets being pointed toward the door by Kelly. You don't belong here. Her voice echoed through the room, cold and unmistakable. The discomfort rippled across the table. Ryan glanced at Kelly, then looked down. I'm not showing this to humiliate anyone, I said. I don't need revenge in that form, but I do need everyone to understand I didn't buy this brand just to own a name. I'm here to change how this place treats people. I leaned back, arms folded. We live in a time where decency is no longer optional. If anyone here still believes they can judge the worth of a customer by skin color, outfit, or accent, you should leave. Today, silence. A man in his 30s raised a hesitant hand. My name is Luis, he said. I was on shift that day. I saw what happened, but I didn't do anything. I was scared. I have 2 kids. This job means everything to me. But today, I want to say I'm sorry. I was wrong to stay silent. I looked at him. A knot formed in my chest, not from anger, but from recognition. I knew that fear. I'd lived with it, learned to bow my head just to survive. But today wasn't about shame. I accept your apology, Luis, but from now on, we don't stay silent. Then I turned to Kelly. And you, Kelly. She swallowed hard. The arrogance she once wore like armor was gone, replaced by something closer to shame. I was wrong, she said quietly. I judged you by how you looked. I had no right. If there's any way I can make it right, I want to. I paused, then nodded. I'm not firing you. Kelly, I want you to stay, but not in your old role. Starting today, you'll be reassigned to inventory and logistics support, back of house. Her eyes widened. A quiet murmur passed through the room. I raised a hand to silence it. I want you to start from the ground up, not as punishment, but to understand arrogance adds no value to this place. She didn't argue, just gave a slow, heavy nod. I wrapped the meeting by announcing a new training initiative, mandatory for everyone focused on inclusive service and full-spectrum customer experience. I also formally named Ryan as acting assistant manager. He still looked like he couldn't believe it until I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. The room emptied. I stayed behind. I looked at the leather chair Kelly used to sit in, the same one she'd leaned from to tell me I didn't belong. Now I was the one giving orders from it. I let out a quiet laugh. They thought I was just another shadow in their curated world. But now, I was the one casting the light into every corner of it. 3 days after the takeover, I ordered an anonymous internal survey across every Maison Ciel store in the country. Just one question: have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination while working here? The results were both infuriating and, sadly, unsurprising. 62% said yes. More than half were people of color or from immigrant backgrounds. Some had been mocked by coworkers. Many had endured slurs from customers, but the worst part, they'd never spoken up. The system I had just acquired was a pyramid where politeness was calibrated by skin tone, and that was exactly what I intended to dismantle, brick by brick. Together with Ryan, I formed an internal reform task force, Project Equinox. 6 members, drawn from different stores across the country, each with a different story, but the same mission: rebuild the culture of this brand around fairness and dignity. I met with every single one of them. I listened. A Haitian employee told me she'd been called a talking barcode by a white customer. An Indian sales rep had been passed over for promotion because her accent was hard to understand. A trans woman was forced to resign after a VIP client said her presence made them uncomfortable. I sat there, still, not because I was shocked, but because I saw myself in every one of those stories. I knew what it was like to be seen through, to be tolerated, but never truly acknowledged. But I wasn't there to sympathize. I was there to act. I implemented 3 immediate policy changes. Every store must include at least 1 minority team member in management. Any customer displaying discriminatory behavior, verbal or otherwise, would be permanently banned. Every employee now had the right to report misconduct directly to my office. No middlemen, no retaliation, ever. Kelly was still in the stockroom, quiet, punctual, never missed a shift. I kept an eye on her, not to micromanage, but to see who she might become after the fall. A week later, I noticed her staying after closing to help a new Filipina employee sort through shipments. No one asked her to. I said nothing. Just noted it. Another day, I overheard her say something to a customer here at Maison Ciel. Everyone is welcome, no matter what you wear or what you look like. I nearly laughed, not out of mockery, but pure, stunned irony. Sometimes, people have to be brought all the way down to learn how to truly see others. Outside, the media had started catching wind. An article popped up in the Los Angeles Mirror Maison Ciel Rodeo Drive, turning over a new leaf. Internal sources hint at cultural reforms. I didn't comment, but I knew my time behind the curtain was running out. Sophie called after reading the piece. "How long are you planning to stay anonymous?" "I'm not hiding," I told her. "I'm just waiting for the right moment to speak. And when that moment comes, what do you want the world to know?" I stared out the window. My new office had a view of the ocean, but I didn't care about the waves or the sunlight. I was thinking about one thing. I want them to know I didn't become the owner to get revenge. I became the owner to rewrite the rules. She was quiet for a second, then laughed. Sounds like a TED Talk in the making. I laughed too, but I wasn't thinking about stages or spotlights. I was thinking about 10-year-old Malik, the boy who got kicked out of a comic book store for carrying a torn backpack. I wanted him to walk into any room without fear of being judged. And if that meant rebuilding the whole damn system, so be it. One afternoon, I sat quietly in the Rodeo Drive store, just observing. An elderly black woman walked in, dressed simply, holding a worn-out purse. The front desk associate, a young woman of Middle Eastern descent, smiled, bowed slightly, and offered her a drink of water. "How can I help you find what you're looking for today, ma'am?" I closed my eyes, not from fatigue, but satisfaction. The gears were in motion, and the game had changed. It started with a leak. A random TikTok account posted a short video, grainy footage of me walking into Maison Ciel with my legal team, signing the ownership papers right at the front counter. The camera caught the gleam on my shirt collar, the Mont Blanc pen pressing down on thick paper, the click of shutters snapping in the background, the caption, in bold white letters. They kicked him out. He came back as the owner. In less than 24 hours, the clip hit over 4 million views. Hundreds of thousands of comments flooded social media. "This is the Netflix movie I want to see. Somebody give this to Ava DuVernay. From kicked out to owner. This is what revenge really looks like. Who is this guy?" And just like that, my name began to surface. Malik Thompson, the black kid from Inglewood, creator of Budgetmate, the man who bought Maison Ciel just 1 month after being humiliated there. The press swarmed. The New York Times, Forbes, LA Times, Business Insider. Some reached out with genuine curiosity. Others smelled nothing but clicks. I said nothing at first. For 2 days, I stayed quiet watching the storm build. Then came a handwritten note, black ink on cream cardstock, from Trevor Noah. "This isn't just revenge. This is how you rewrite history from the basement. I want to hear your real voice. I said yes. The interview was set in a Culver City studio. Warm lights overhead. The audience dead silent as I walked on stage. Trevor greeted me with a handshake, his eyes holding something I hadn't yet seen from any journalist respect. Malik, he said gently, tell us about the day you were kicked out of the store. I looked straight into the camera. No shrinking, no softening. I was kicked out because I was a black boy in a hoodie standing in a world that decided I didn't belong. They didn't ask who I was. They just looked at me and made a decision. The room held its breath. I stood there, beneath the cold lights and polished floors, realizing that no matter how smart I was, no matter how much money sat in my account to them, I was just another suspicious black body. And I knew, if I didn't do something, it would keep happening. Not just to me, to hundreds of others. Trevor nodded slowly. So, what did you do? I bought the place. Applause erupted across the room. I didn't do it because I needed the store, I continued. I did it because I needed them to know if they won't change how they see us, then the people they used to overlook will be the ones rewriting the rules. After the segment aired, I couldn't open my phone without seeing my name. Trending #1 on Twitter, top 5 on Google. Vogue published a full feature, The Boy in the Shadows, Malik Thompson, and the industry's boldest power shift. My inbox overflowed messages from investors, nonprofits, and students from the Bronx, Oakland, Mississippi. One kid wrote, "You're the reason I didn't drop out today." Another email from a single mother in the Dominican community. "Thank you for showing my daughter that skin color doesn't define worth." That night, I sat alone on the rooftop of my new office building. The wind cut through my coat as the city lights of Los Angeles spread out like a glowing constellation of dreams. And I thought about my father, the man who used to deliver pizzas across this very city to keep us afloat. If he were alive, I don't know if he'd understand terms like brand restructuring or equity acquisition, but I know this, he'd nod if I told him. I didn't shout. I didn't fight. I built, and I won. But even in all the applause, in all the praise, there was still one thing I hadn't done. I hadn't gone back to Inglewood, the place I grew up, where my mother still lived, still unaware that her son's name was now making waves through the fashion world. I decided to keep that silence just a little longer, because the final chapter of this story was still waiting to be written. 2 weeks after my identity went public, I returned to Inglewood. No flashy cars, no paparazzi, just me, in my mom's old Toyota, parked in front of the ground floor apartment wrapped in ivy, the sound of barking drifting in from the backyard. My mom still didn't know the full story. I told her I worked for a tech company, that I was doing fine, staying busy, but today I wasn't here to keep secrets anymore. "Mom," I said, placing a box of jasmine tea on the cracked wooden table, "I want to tell you something about what happened last month. When I got kicked out of that store," she put her cup down, her eyes narrowing. "Someone insulted you, didn't they? That salesman? It was a woman." "Actually," I said, smiling softly, but I didn't argue, I didn't yell. I just went back. I handed her a folder. Inside was a printed article from Forbes. Headline in bold, "Malik Thompson buys Maison Ciel from discrimination to dominance in fashion." She read slowly. Her eyes widened. Midway through, her hands began to tremble. I saw her lips tighten, like she was holding something back. You own that store now. Not just the store, Mom. The entire brand. In the U.S. She set the paper down, leaned back in her chair, silent. Then, finally, she said just one thing. "Your father would be so proud." The first day, Maison Ciel reopened after our complete restructuring. I showed up at the Rodeo Drive store, but I wasn't alone. With me were 15 teenagers of color from high schools in Inglewood, Compton, and Watts. All of them were recipients of the Thompson Initiative, a scholarship program I founded that teaches business skills, personal finance, and style development, and the first training space. The second floor of Maison Ciel, formerly an executive-only suite that had never welcomed people like us, Ryan, now the branch manager, greeted the kids with a wide grin. He wore a crisp new blazer, but still rocked his old sneakers. To remind myself where I came from, he said, Kelly was there too. Dressed in her stockroom uniform, no makeup, she stood quietly at the back counter, watching as the teens came in. One girl, about 14, with deep brown skin and braided hair, looked around, wide-eyed. She turned to me and asked, "Mr. Malik, I get to try on one of these jackets for real." "Not just try," I said. "You'll learn how to design it, produce it, market it, and sell it. And if you want one day, you'll create your own brand." She beamed, her gap-toothed smile lighting up the room. The reopening was modest. No red carpets, no press, but right outside the front entrance, I had a sign installed. Not a logo, not a mission statement, just one engraved line. "We welcome everyone, especially those the world told they didn't belong." I ordered that same sign to be placed in front of every Maison Ciel location across the country, because real revenge, true justice doesn't happen when you make the person who pushed you down beg for forgiveness. It happens when you rise and build a place where everyone who's ever been knocked down can walk in with their head held high. A few days later, I received a handwritten letter, no return address, the penmanship careful and slanted. "Malik, I once thought you were invisible, a shadow, and I was wrong. Working in the stockroom taught me silence, but watching you taught me respect. Thank you for not firing me, Kelly." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer of my office desk. Every night, I still get dozens of messages from students, from single mothers, from kids just kicked out of sneaker stores. They share their stories, and I read every single one. My story is done, but theirs, those are what keep me going.